Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 92 million miles is an utterly insignificant little blue-green planet whose ape-descended lifeforms are so amazingly primitive that two of them still think doing a podcast called Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea is a pretty neat idea. These podcasters have, or rather had, a problem, which was this. Actually, this is the solution.
Two men, two amazingly primitive men, thought this was a pretty neat idea. They were dreamers, thinkers, speculative philosophers, or as their wives would have it, idiots.
Hey, Jeff, what is this?
Well, Bryan, this is going to be our discussion on the collaboration between Terry Jones and Douglas Adams of the novel Starship Titanic.
Mm-hmm. And as you can hear, my voice is going to be a little bit cranky.
Yep, that's okay.
I'm trying to get over, I'm not sure. It started with just losing my voice entirely.
Oh, how bad did it get?
Oh, it was pretty bad for a day or two, but I'm on the upside of recovery, so
Well, that's good.
We'll see how it goes.
Right. Well, the first thing I want to say is that since the printed out version that I was using of the book is 118 pages, and I have 107 pages of notes, I'm thinking this is going to be a two-part episode. So we're going to get that out of the way right at the beginning.
Well, yeah, so that's pretty exciting. I've got far fewer notes than that. But I do agree. I don't think that this story of this novelization would be complete unless we break it up a bit, because it is quite dense.
Yes. And the second thing I want to say is I was wrong.
You were wrong.
I was. And I'm sure that there are those out there who listen to this and they wonder if we've actually read the books that we're talking about.
Okay.
Last episode, when we were talking about coming to this episode, I mistakenly credited the mention of Starship Titanic in Hitchhikers when the Heart of Gold was being launched. When in fact, it's in Life, the Universe, and Everything when it was introducing the ship Cricket 1.
Right. You are correct. In fact, in the introduction to this story, we do hear from the great man himself who wrote the introduction. Yes. That's Douglas Adams.
Right.
He mentions here that this idea of the spontaneous, massive existence failure came into existence in the Life, the Universe, and Everything.
Right.
And I thought that was quite interesting how he said that it was just a fleeting idea that expanded in his mind. And in fact, in the introduction, he says that this fleeting idea reminded him of the interactive storytelling that a computer program can provide.
Right.
And he thought that this would be a great opportunity, the Starship Titanic story, to create a computer program.
Right.
And when he was discussing this with his publisher, the publisher suggested that a book should come out at the same time.
Right. How's he going to do that?
That's right. And he felt that he didn't have time to do the computer program and write the book. So an unfortunate friend of his walked into the studio where he was working, a friend of his by the name of Terry Jones.
Yes.
One of our favorite actors from our favorite shows, Monty Python and others, and asked him if there was anything that he could do to contribute to the program. And that's when Douglas Adams said to him, well, sure. Do you want to write the book?
And I believe he says that Terry Jones said, yeah, all right, provided I can write it in the nude.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what he said. And of course, that's funny to those of us who are aficionados of the famous Monty Python skits. We see Terry Jones naked quite a bit.
Yes. Yes.
He's famous for being the naked man playing the organ.
Well.
And claims to have written this entire book in the nude.
Right. Why did the publisher want the book and the game to be done at the same time?
Well, he felt that it would appeal to the audience that would be enjoying the computer game, and therefore he would get more of a response and sell more books.
And then I think Douglas said that struck him as odd because they've managed to previously sell books of his without any attendant CD ROM game.
That is correct. You've got that right. Well, that's the nature, he says, of the publishing game. They've always got some trick up their sleeve.
Right.
And one other thing that he mentions in the introduction, which I thought was interesting, of course, is that when you do get to play the game, the Starship Titanic, the voice of Terry Jones appears as the parrot that is on the ship itself. So in this particular case, Terry Jones is responsible for the novel and the parrot in Starship Titanic.
Yes. And he, at the end of the introduction, says, as you are about to discover, he has written an altogether sillier, naughtier, and more wonderful novel than I would have done. And I will say that this is not a novel that Douglas would have written, but I don't know if it's sillier. Might definitely be naughtier. And wow, man, it gets, yeah, well, you'll find out.
Yes, there's a number of occasions where the naughtiness level does approach obscene.
Yes. Since we seem to frequently mention Mel Brooks on this podcast, I'm going to do a stretch and I'm going to tie him to this book because I think a good comparison can be made that the Starship Titanic is a science fiction novel sharing a similar plot point to the 1967 movie The Producers.
Okay.
Which is wanting it to fail for the insurance money.
You are absolutely correct. I didn't think of that connection, but it is clearly connected.
Yes. Everything is connected. Also, there is a repetition of a style of a joke that is overdone enough to put it on the same level as And Another Thing's guide notes.
Right.
But we are going to jump right in if you are ready.
I am ready.
So, Chapter 1. So here is the perfect piece to put in the beginning of a novel like this. This was uttered by an upset official, the Gat of Blorantis, who was in charge of the launch of the ceremony. He says, "No, I do not want another bloody fish paste sandwich." He did not exactly use the word bloody because it did not exist in the Bloranthian language.
Mm-hmm.
The word used could be more literally translated as similar in size to the left earlobe, but the meaning was much more close to bloody. Nor did he actually use the phrase fish paste, since fish do not exist on Blorantin in the form in which we would understand them to be fish. But when one is translating a form of a language used by a civilization of which we know nothing, located as far away as the center of the galaxy, one has to be approximate. So I thought, great, brilliant, get that out of the way. Let us know that every word that you're going to use is just so we can understand it. And you're not going to have to say every time you use a word that didn't literally translate correctly all of the things. Oh, no, but he will. Over and over and over. He is going to remind us that Blorantans don't have fish paste, or Blorantans don't say bloody, and that this is a translation.
That's correct. That's correct.
And evidently on this planet, Blorantin, Momentous occasions are marked as being a fish paste event, even though nobody likes fish paste. And chapter 1 basically ends setting the stage of why what happens will happen. So, about the construction of the Starship Titanic, the construction was moved from Yasaka to Bloranton, and there had been rumors of corners being cut. The Yasakans are craftsmen, like the finest, just anal retentive, every detail craftsmen, and therefore expensive.
That's correct. Yep.
So to cut corners and save money, it was moved to Bloranton. The Cybernet pigeon cursors had been below spec, and the great engine had been mislaid. So now there are also tensions between those involved in its construction due to the expanding budget. There's a genius designer, Leavinus, and he has quarreled with the chairman of the Starstruck Inc., and his name is Brabastagon. And then the quarrels also include the accountant, Scraliantis. So there's three main characters of the construction of the starship, which is Leavinus, the designer, the chairman of the construction company, Brabastagon, and of course the accountant, Scraliantis.
I'm so glad you were able to come up with those names.
Okay.
The one thing that you'll find repeatedly in this story, well, there's one section entirely that we'll get into, I think, later, probably even in the second episode, where names become a literal joke.
Yes.
But these names are very difficult. I would have thought his name might have been Leovinus or Leovinus, but it's very tricky. It's Leovinus.
Yes.
And he is the main brilliant genius who has designed and initiated the construction of this fabulous ship.
Right.
And it does say in the first chapter, it talks a little bit about how the fish paste became the famous dish here on Blorantian. And it's because the Blorantians are very adamant that they have the greatest canopies in the universe. In fact, they have competed in the canopy competitions universally for years. And at one point, when someone got bored at Bloranton and decided, well, what the hell with this? I'm just going to give these people some fish paste, which is, as you might imagine, a dull flavored item.
Right.
To the judges of the canopy competitions, they actually won, and that's what gave them the universal pride of their fish paste.
Right. Now everybody's forced to eat it.
Yes.
And then one thing about the construction project in general is that the construction of the starship had brought financial ruin on almost everybody involved, including one entire planet, Yasaka. Yasaka had been a flourishing resort of industrious folk with the most efficient and dependable construction industry in the central galaxy. They never overcharged. Everything they did always was delivered on time. They never cut corners. They were the race of the proud craftsmen who were able to devote their wealth to a well-being of their own people. And then, when it was moved, there was the crash. So now we will move on to chapters 2 and 3. And the reason I say chapters 2 and 3, because my version of the printed book did not have where chapter 3 started. It goes from 2 to 4. So if your book had a 3, I don't know where that is. So we're going to do them both together. So the beginning of this chapter is all about launch and a christening ceremony. Apparently, Leavinus had some sort of accident and burned off his eyebrows, so he is wearing false ones. Yeah. We never learn of the accident's particulars.
No.
Leavinus is being questioned about construction rumors and asked about crashing the economy of an entire planet. There was one journalist who asked the tough questions. However, the main focus was not on the questions, but rather sentences with lines like these. And I'm going to read 3 little excerpts of the book. And they're going to all have something in common. Leavinus was just trying to decide which of the 2 cub reporters with delightful cleavages he should ask backstage for a little drink, or whether he should invite them both and see how things worked out. Next. With that voice of his that made grown men cringe behind their stomachs and young cub reporters with delightful cleavages feel deliciously damp all over. And lastly, breathed one of the cub reporters and shifted onto her other buttock. So Terry Jones just goes and goes and goes on that line.
Yes.
Over and over and over.
Mm-hmm. And it is interesting because in chapter 2, they also say that despite Leovinus's obsession with cleavages, one of his greatest obsession with cleavages has to do with the cleavage of data streams.
Yes.
And this is where we find out that his real fascination is the digital creation that he has made on the ship Titania.
Yes.
Who is the overseeing computer of this particular starship.
Right. Basically a super advanced AI.
Mm-hmm.
But is also imbued with emotional life.
Right.
I laughed when this line was read. The wind picked up, blasting dead leaves, old snack wrappings, torn religious journals, pages of sentimental verse, knitting patterns, and all the other usual detritus left behind by construction workers.
Yes, my favorite word, detritus. I did notice when it was written, but I didn't take a specific note on the word detritus.
It was written twice, I believe.
Mm-hmm, that is true.
I don't know where the other one comes in. I don't think I made a second note, but because I know it's your favorite word.
Oh,
I
yes.
wanted to make sure that people knew it was used.
That's right. That's right. And of course, right at the end of the last chapter, and we'll find out shortly why it's important, but they do introduce the chief of police and rabbits.
Yes.
As a character in the story. And of course, the rabbits part is a nod to our friends at Monty Python.
Right. Absolutely. And then another tasteless joke, I will say, that I guess is supposed to be funny, but I don't know. It just gets harder and harder as time goes on to laugh at this type of stuff. They're talking about Leavinus running into a journalist from the press conference, and he gets questioned again about the shoddy workmanship. And Leavinus's answer was, just because the Blorantan government chooses to employ the Amalgamated Unmarried Teenage Mothers construction units, there is no reason to think that the work is in any way slipshod. So most of the construction of the Starship Titanic was done by unmarried teenage mothers.
That's right. Apparently they have a lot of them on Bolorantis.
I guess so.
It is a huge ship, by the way.
Yes, it is. So to prove to the journalist that the construction work was sound, he brought the journalist into the Starship Titanic, and it was still being built because 2 workers passed them on their way out as they entered. In the grand lobby, they encounter a malfunctioning doorbot, which is wearing headphones. During this, the journalist is taking notes about all the malfunctions and Leavinus's reactions to all of these things. Like, hey, he's not expecting people still doing last-minute repairs. And he was doing it on what was called a thumb recorder. Now, it could be a nod to the electronic thumb, which, when it's going to hitchhiking, that's thumb, hitchhiking, that joke.
Right.
So
right.
I never gave it any other type of reference. But here, the way it was used, this novel was published in October of 1997. The video game was first released in April of 1998. What I imagined this guy using was something like a USB flash thumb drive, which weren't created until 1999. So there was no such thing as a thumb drive or a USB type of a drive. So they didn't even exist when this was written. So again, they always talk about Douglas being prophetic in his imagination of future technologies.
Right, right.
A thumb recorder certainly fits that bill.
Right, right. And even in this second chapter, they mentioned that Leovinus did a lot of his work with a VR headset, that he never actually visited the ship itself until this fateful trip where he sneaks on board with the journalist.
Right.
So they do mention VR, which is really nascent at this point in history.
Right. So immediately after having this thought of, wow, how prophetic about the thumb and the thumb recorder and the USB drives that are to come a year later, there's this note or this line. The journalist made another note, but Leovinus turned on him so suddenly that he stuck his thumb in his mouth and pretended to be sucking at it. So is he recording into his actual thumb? Like the recording device is implanted in his thumb. It's not an actual... Okay, so forget about what I said about the prophecy of future technologies, because we don't have anything like that at this point.
That's right. We're not currently able to suck on our thumb and record data at the same time.
No.
In fact, most of the time when I'm sucking on my thumb or having others suck on it, I'm not really concentrating a lot on my data.
Well, have you been taking a lot of cold medicine?
I think so.
Okay. So now here we get a little information about the ship, and this is kind of the life metaphor that the whole book and the whole video game is going to be based on. The ship is divided up into 3 classes. It has first class staterooms, it has second class executive suites by the Grand Axial Canal with gondolas and all that, and then they have the Super Galactic Traveler Deluxe suites near the bilge. And Leovinus walks around the ship some more, seeing it is nowhere near ready for launch, and all the shortcuts that had been made, and he was upset. And then he ran into another worker who came back to retrieve his parrot. So now we move to chapter 4. Leovinus learned that both Brabasagan and Scraliantis were on the starship. He needed to talk to someone, and that someone happened to be Titania. So he went to the vital heart of the ship, the secret chamber of Titania herself, which happens to be the grand chandelier hanging in the central dome. For some reason, it had to be hung upside down, and a reversal field was used to switch gravity. So, again, this is things that are put in here simply to be silly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only reason I could think of why it had to have a reversing gravity situation.
You hang it upside down, and then do a reversal gravity. Well, hang it right side up. But, just design the chandelier to be cylindrical rather than turnip shaped or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, when he arrived, Titania lay there in the center of the chamber with her head disfigured, leaving a gaping cavity of raw microcircuitry. He caught Brabasagan sabotaging Titania for the insurance and confronted him. Brabasagan dropped a silver shard, which was part of Titania's brain. Leovinus pushed him into the trash removal robot, the succubus, and Brabasagan was sucked away.
Yes, the succubus is kind of interesting. I mean, it was an interesting choice of words for that.
A perfect word for a vacuum disposal unit.
That's correct. That's right, because it does exactly that. It turns whatever you put into the succubus console, it turns it into a cube and transfers it to its appropriate place, being able to identify what it was or what it is or where it should go.
Correct.
Quite interesting.
And it's not supposed to be able to do organic matter, especially living organic matter. So that's another one of the shortcuts or corners that were cut. Detritus was used again. So I did mention it again.
Yes.
Chapter 5.
So that's how do you say his name? Brogostagon?
Robostagon.
Robostagon.
Yeah, I'm just doing the pronunciations that I remember from the audiobook.
Good. I wondered how you came up with any of them. But
yeah.
It is really curious when you're reading this book and you're trying to pronounce the names in any form or fashion. So I first read it and then I did listen to it. Now, when I listened to it, it was a computer voice. And it was it was a computer voice. I'm listening on my Nook. And it was really funny because every time it came to the ellipses, where it would go ... end quote.
Yes.
It would read the story and then it would it would leave the first period as the end of the sentence and then it would go ... quote mark.
All right. Well,
I
listened to the audio that was read by Terry Jones.
Oh, neat.
I figure that if Terry Jones, who wrote the book, pronounced the names this way, then that has to be how they are.
Oh, that's fantastic. See, I didn't have that opportunity. So you probably have far better understanding of the way these words or names should be pronounced than I do.
So after Leavinus pushed Barbastagon into the succubus and he was sucked away, Leavinus retrieved the silver shard. But there is a second silver shard and other delicate pieces of her brain that are still missing.
That's right. It's funny. I think, I don't know whether you had the same thought or not, but the silver shard reminds us of the heart of gold. At least reminds me of the heart of gold.
Yeah.
So I wondered about that too. But they don't talk about the technology there, the computer technology, as much as in the Heart of Gold, it's much more related to its engine, not its computer.
Yes. So, Chapter 5. So, Leavinus went to the lobby and asked the desk bot where Scraliantus was. The desk bot was absolutely zero help when it thought that Leavinus was a third-class passenger, but helped him right away when he flashed his 60 million miles club gold card.
Mm-hmm.
So again, there's going to be a lot of this class division of the services that you can get and how you get snubbed if you're the lower class versus the higher class.
Right, exactly.
So once he got the deskbot's attention, Leavinus then went to the first class restaurant and Scraliantus was there.
Right, and this was a black tie affair restaurant, and he ends up having quite the argument with the maitre d'.
Yeah.
Because he's obviously not dressed for the occasion, and the maitre d' is insisting that he modify his clothing and look before he enter and bother the patrons of an empty restaurant.
Right. And maitre d' was going as far as to trying to put the jacket on him while he's walking.
Exactly. It's funny. I actually, it wasn't a black tie restaurant that I went to, but I went to a restaurant in Detroit, and they gave me a jacket to put on so that I could enter the restaurant. So
right. Wow.
I've been there.
I've never had that happen.
Oh yeah, it was interesting.
Well, Leavinus was tired of the maitre d' bot, so he picked it up and threw it at Scraliantus.
Mm-hmm.
And the maitre d' bot hit him, and they fell, and it broke apart.
Yes.
And then they had a fencing duel with robot parts.
I love it because it's actually an arm and a leg.
Yes.
So they fence around with an arm and a leg.
Right. And Leavinus had Scraliantus by the neck, but he couldn't kill him. And Scraliantus did not have that problem and beat Leavinus with a lamp.
Mm-hmm.
And they've described these lamps as looking like a winged woman, which is the manifestation of Titania.
Mm-hmm.
And in all of the commotion, Scraliantus dropped the second silver shard, and it was left behind on the restaurant floor, mingled with all the broken robot parts. So now you know that people are going to be looking for this part, and it's just going to be lost in the junk. Chapter 6. So while the scuffle was happening in the restaurant, The journalist was trying to get information out of the workman who came to retrieve his parrot. However, the cage had been opened and the parrot was missing. The workman confirmed everything the journalist suspected and gave him a piece of metal for the journalist to give to the parrot if he sees it. It had the address and phone number of the Yasakan embassy in Blorantis. Do you think that's going to be important later?
Right. Again, it's one of those small little details that comes back.
So as the journalist was exploring the rest of the ship, he literally ran into Skraliantis, and they had their own scuffle. Now, to be fair, there are sometimes this joke works and sometimes it doesn't. It always works the first time, and after that, it gets old and tired. And I don't think I'm going to point out all of them, but just the ones that jumped off the page at me.
Mm-hmm.
So during this fight, the journalist charged after the accountant and brought him down in what would have been referred to as a rugby tackle.
Right.
If they had played rugby football on Blorantin. Like, again, he's got to say, but there's no rugby. He's going to call it
yeah, exactly.
Rugby.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't say tackle.
That's
he
right.
has to stick in the word rugby just so he can point out that there isn't rugby on Blorantin. So as the fight went on, the journalist was stabbed with a lamp. Remember, it has wings.
Yes.
And the parrot swooped down on them and knocked Skraliantis backwards and over the rail and into the central well.
Mm-hmm. And again, we're reminded at that point that the safety railings were supposed to be made of this heavy-duty metal, and shortcuts were made, and the metal was downgraded, and it broke as Skraliantis leaned against it and fell to his death.
Hoisted on his own petard.
Yes.
His cuts.
Damn, why was
he
carrying a petard around with him? That's what I want to know.
Yes. All right. Chapter 7. The scuffle in the previous chapter happened because when Skraliantis and the journalist bumped into each other, and I quote, Skraliantis jumped and his eyes shot guiltily over the journalist's shoulder as if expecting to see the homicide police with their vicious trained rabbits pouring onto the starship to arrest the murderer of the greatest genius the galaxy had ever known.
Mm-hmm.
He's not dead, I swear it. So the first thing they mention in Chapter 7, where we return to the launch site, is to mention that vicious rabbits had been used for crowd control against the Yasakan protesters.
That's right.
So the Gat of Blorantis is a publicity hound and did not want to launch the starship since Leavinus was not there and could not have his picture taken with him. I said I was not going to mention them all, and I will try to stop after this one, but it is particularly egregious.
Mm-hmm.
The starship was christened the Starship Titanic with the breaking of a bottle of French champagne. Why, you ask? Well, listen to this. The explanation is rather complicated and involves a lot of stuff about time warps and black holes and an intergalactic smuggling ring. If I were you, I simply wouldn't worry about it and just take it as read. So, I'm going to put in here something funny that doesn't make any sense, and then I'm going to say there's a reason, but I'm not going to tell you.
Right, and even on top of that, later in the book, the author mentions that nobody believed there was any life on that part of the galaxy. So, if they knew they had French champagne on Earth, I'm confused. Yes. I don't know. I'm not a novelist. I've never written a novel, but I consider this lazy writing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, where you come, and there'll be a couple of more instances where he says, "Oh, and we don't know why that happened." Like, but it was a critical plot point.
Right, and that particular plot point is added here as a footnote, at least in the book that I'm reading from. So when you looked at the book or when you listened to the book, was that footnote immediately identified, or did you have to read it later in the book?
It's immediately identified.
Right, so when Terry Jones reads it, he reads out the footnote.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yes.
Because when I read the story, and inconveniently, the footnotes are not linked. I mean, I'm reading it on a computer pad. It should have
Right.
been linked. So I trying to click on the little, footnote number so I could read it while I'm there. But of course, it's all the way at the end of the book, and the only way to read it is to go all the way in the end of the book.
Oh,
and
man.
read it.
Oh, yeah.
So I left it till the end.
So then, as the starship was revealed and everybody was in awe, we get a callback joke that was kind of funny, and it goes back to the unmarried mothers. So apparently, there was a lot of unmarried mothers saying, "Your mummy built that," to all of the infants. So there's a whole crowd of unmarried mothers with their little kids, all pointing at the ship saying, "Your mummy built that." And then, as you mentioned, as the ship left the construction dock, it suffered a SMEF, a spontaneous, massive existence failure.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 8. Here we're introduced to Dan, who is the co-owner of a hotel back on Earth. We're introduced to Nigel, a sleazeball, and Nettie, who is being portrayed as a bimbo with her blonde hair and Gap t-shirt, but she's smarter than people think.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lucy, the co-owner of the hotel and also a lawyer. The first time I read this, I really had difficulty keeping straight who was who.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to try and set it straight here with a couple of relationships.
Okay.
Dan and Nigel used to be business partners, and they sold their company. Dan and Lucy are a couple who have been together for 13 years. Nigel and Nettie are a couple, but he constantly demeans her. Dan and Lucy are opening a hotel bed and breakfast, and they're renovating it from a former rectory.
Mm-hmm.
They want to call it the Watergate Hotel. Nettie wants to take a picture of it at night for an album or to be hung on the wall. Right then, a giant spaceship lands, and its keel slices through their hotel.
Potential hotel. Now, pile of rubble.
Yes. Okay, so here's another little, seems throwaway, but it's a very important part of the story. So as they're looking at this ship that just sliced down through the hotel, it says that the elevator in the keel went up and down twice. Actually, it said there was just a little light that went up and down, but we understand that to be the elevator.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The second time the elevator came down, the bell bottom merged.
Right.
He apologized for wrecking their home and offered them all complimentary cruises. So now here, listening to the audiobook read by Terry Jones,
Mm-hmm.
I wished I was only reading the book for all of the times Lucy screamed.
Oh, God. Yes.
Terry Jones, in his woman voice, screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming was just bad. And
Okay, so I have to ask you this. Now, I didn't listen to Terry Jones, and I told you the first thing I did was read it, okay?
yes.
And then I listened to the computer voice. And again, the computer voice made me laugh so hard. Because, I mean, it's really hard to describe. But when it came to the screaming,
Mm-hmm.
and to be fair, every scream is written the same way. It's written as ARG. AARRGH, in some form there, okay? So every time she screams, quote unquote,
And it's a lot.
form, right, in the written form, it's like I said, it's some number of A's, some number of R's, some number of G's,
And they're all
some
different
number
lengths.
of H's.
Right.
Now, when Terry Jones does it, does he say the same kind of scream every time?
Yes, and it's all how long the scream goes. Like when it's a lot of A's, R's, and H's, it's a long scream. And when it's shorter, it's a shorter scream. But it's pretty much the same scream. And just so listeners can appreciate what I had to put up with to do this episode for them, I may find an excerpt where Terry Jones is screaming, and I will enter it here so you can hear it.
Oh, that would be awesome. Maybe I'll try to record one from the audiobook, because what I think is funny with the audiobook is it apparently can sort of read ARG when there's one A.
Okay.
And a number of R's, a number of G's, a number of H's. But if there's multiple A's, instead of saying ARG or ARG, it goes A, G, 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 H, H, H.
All right. So I'm going to put Terry Jones screaming here. And I'm going to put the recording of the way the tablet reads it.
Yep.
Here.
Dot. Ag. Erg. AAAAARGGGHHH. Erg. AJH. Erg.
So every intergalactic story always comes down to translations and words and people from the Earth being able to speak to anybody in the galaxy. So
right.
How does this story solve that problem?
Well, and that's a question that Dan asks the robot. And Dan says to the robot, "How is it that you're speaking English?" And the robot explains that the translation mechanism that they use is that they are actually speaking Blaurantian. And isn't that pretty convenient for the writers of science fiction?
Yeah, see? See?
So
lazy.
Right. But that particular one is meant to be a fourth wall joke.
Yes.
You know, so he's breaking the fourth wall, saying, okay, so writers of science fiction always have the same little pattern that they go through, some way of making everybody speak the same language. So you're right, it's overdone. But in this particular case, he did break the fourth wall.
Right.
To which Dan asks, "Who the heck are you talking to?"
Yeah. Exactly. So Nettie, the bimbo with the Gap t-shirt, was excited to go on the Starship. Dan and Lucy, the proprietors of the now wrecked hotel, just followed after her. Lucy screamed again, and Nigel was left behind in his car, and he was joined by Leavinus. We don't know it's Leavinus at the time, or he doesn't know it's Leavinus, but just some old man gets in his car.
Right.
Chapter 9. Upon takeoff, all three of them blacked out. Nettie woke up in her supergalactic traveler class cabin and found what looked to be a TV remote control.
Right.
However, it was her personal electronic thingy. And she was told what it was by the lamp in her room.
Yeah, I got a kick out of that. It actually says that everybody gets knocked out, including the robots, but they just happen to wake up prior to the humans waking up.
Right.
Because as Nettie describes, she's not only in her room, she happens to be naked and in her bed.
Yes. And the robot was a smartass, and Lucy reprimanded it. But his defense was that he is a personality transfer bot. So that's this book's version of genuine people personality.
Mm-hmm.
So Lucy woke up in her supergalactic traveler class cabin and was shortly joined by Dan. Like Nettie, Dan was also told that the only way to find another passenger in the supergalactic traveler class was to see the desk bot in the embarkation lobby. Mostly, though, Dan wanted to find a way off the Starship. And I'm going to ask this here. And my answer is going to be B. So, would you rather this be A, totally unrelated to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but uses different names for things already created in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Or B, put this in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy universe, but just not have any of the characters that we know, but still keep it the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation or whatever things that they want to name.
Right. I'm thinking that they didn't have to go out of their way to create new functions like the translation, because we know the Babelfish, existed.
Yes.
So the Babelfish existed in the stories that we heard, and we can assume that they existed at this time when the Starship Titanic is being built. So Babelfish could have been in there without any problem at all, and that could have avoided some of the silliness that we have.
Right.
So there, I think it would have been nicer to have that. So I guess that's B.
Yeah, and they came up with Starstruck Industries for the creator of different, it doesn't have to be a Hitchhiker's novel, but it could be in the Hitchhiker's universe. And I think
that's true.
I think that would have pleased more people than it upset. So now they have to use the elevators to get to the embarkation lobby, and the lift bot also has a personality transfer similar to Marvin.
Right.
So they have depressed robot elevators
that don't like to go up.
Yes.
So they're like the ones on the publishing house.
Right. Again, it always makes you think of this version in the other story when, like we've mentioned, just put it in the universe.
Right.
So here is where we learn the importance of class divisions.
Mm-hmm.
As Dan and Lucy exited the elevator, the lift bot said, "This is the embarkation lobby. As supergalactic travelers, you are entitled to pass through this lobby, but you may not use the seating accommodation or the bathrooms. Supergalactic class facilities are available on your own decks." So they decided that they needed to see the captain. However, the captain's bridge is accessible only from the first class accommodation. Then they were told to go back to their own deck and quarters. When they refused, they were told that, "If you do not return to your own quarters, I shall be forced to call the ship's security officers." And, for the third time referenced, they have vicious rabbits.
As I was going to say the last time you mentioned the vicious rabbits, at least Terry Jones knows the writer's adage to write what you know.
Write what you know, yes. So Dan realized that what they have is the commonest problem known to travelers around the world. How do we get a free upgrade? So he's trying to bluff his way, but the desk bot did not bite.
Right. And it's funny. I love the way they describe the desk bot's attitude in addressing Dan. They say that the desk bot addressed Dan as if he were a stupid patch of damp. And that Dan, a little later, gets nasty. And, well, that's as nasty as Dan can get, which is described as nasty as a package of Band-Aids.
Okay.
So I thought that was a pretty good description of Dan.
Yes. And he holds true to that description throughout the whole book. So Dan finds out that there are no upgrades to first class on complimentary tickets because the tickets that they got were just given to them because of an apology. So they asked about second class, and they were told that there were vouchers in their rooms. So, Chapter 10. They all try to go to the rooms to get their upgrade vouchers, but since Nettie is the only one with the translator specs from the beginning, she is the only one who knows the name of her room. And Dan and Lucy try doors at random.
Right.
So I guess we didn't mention this, but when Lucy first wakes up and she's talking to that lamp that told her about her personal electronic thingy, she was also told that she can put on these special Google glasses that will allow her to read everything that is printed.
Pretty neat, huh?
So while Dan and Lucy are trying doors at random, Nettie is going to the engine room through the Grand Axial Canal because she has a plan. Lucy and Dan talk about Nettie, and Dan says that Nettie seems to be pretty intelligent, and Lucy admonishes Dan for ogling Nettie. Dan finds his door and Lucy asks if it's getting colder. Now, we never heard Nettie tell them about the engine room, but they do talk about Nettie going to the engine room. So there are conversations that they had that we didn't ever experience. And Nettie made it to the engine room, and her idea had been a quite simple one. If they wanted to communicate with the captain and they couldn't get up to the captain's bridge to speak to him personally, they'd have to telephone him from the engine room, because there had to be some sort of communication between the bridge and the engineers. And in the engine room, she found a black darkness behind a thick window and a bomb. But the bomb wasn't armed. And while Nettie was looking at the intercom, she was getting cold and found it more difficult to breathe. So now here is another cheat.
Right.
I'm just going to read what it says in the book. What happened next is totally unclear. Certainly, Nettie herself had no recollection. She remembered climbing up the ladder next to the window. She could recall feeling colder than ever and finding her breathing harder, and then feeling a force gripping her. A force pulling her sideways, off the ladder. A force so vast that she thought she was being sucked into a black hole or something. As she felt herself falling horizontally off the ladder towards whatever it was behind the Perspex window, the next thing she knew was whirling around in a blackness, fighting for her life. So it makes me think that the author could not come up with any good ideas for how to do it, so he just starts by saying, we're really not sure what happened, but somehow she got sucked off this ladder and through a window.
Yeah, even in the description that's described later, somehow she actually passes through this glass window without breaking it.
Yes. So, chapter 11. Dan and Lucy get their upgrades, and they complain about the lack of heat and air. And they are refused an upgrade to first class because they do not have a credit card, nor are they members of the 60 Million Miles Club. And they are told that because there are no first or second class passengers on board, and there's no second class passengers even though they're second class because vouchers aren't processed immediately, like they wait till the end of the month to process all of them. But the oxygen supply is only for the third class passengers, and they have turned off all the oxygen for first and second class because there aren't any of those passengers. So they only have 1/3 of the oxygen for the entire ship.
Right. And this doesn't become a problem until they actually open up the second class areas.
Right.
Because they have second class passengers now.
Right. So Lucy went to look for oxygen, and Dan was instructed to get them to first class. So, chapter 12. Lucy went to the medical center to get oxygen, and Lucy discovered 2 figures on the floor. One of them, the journalist, jumped up and grabbed her. She fainted and woke tied to a bed. Lucy did some more screaming, and Lucy became attracted to the journalist. When the journalist was going to leave to find the bomb, Lucy told him he can't leave her there tied to the bed. And he said, shit. Here we go again. The actual Bloranton phrase was north of Pangolin, which was a particularly unpleasant suburb of Blorantis, the capital of Bloranton. But the meaning was shit. Like, okay, come on. Haven't you done that joke enough?
Right. And of course, the odd part is the pangolin is an animal.
Yes.
Odd looking one, as we know,
Yes.
But why is it north of Pangolin?
Pangolin's a suburb.
Yes, apparently. It's an unpleasant suburb.
Yes. But I really did like this part. While waiting to get into the second class area and the Grand Axial Canal, Lucy asks the journalist, "You're an alien, aren't you?" And the journalist replied, "No, you're the alien. This is a Bloranton starship, in case you haven't noticed." And Lucy discovers the journalist was injured and wanted to help him. She tries opening his shirt, but was told it had a thought seal. Then it opens, and she removes a shard of glass and applies a plaster. Chapter 13.
This is a dumb chapter.
Yes, they start right off with it.
Right.
By the time they had reached the engine room, Lucy had managed to convince the journalist that her name really was Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what that means in Blaranton? No, she said coldly. What does it mean? I can't tell you, he replied. I'd like to know. No. I just couldn't. What's so funny? Go on, you've got to tell me. Maybe when I know you better. Well, what's your name? She asked the journalist. The journalist, replied the journalist. That's not a name, that's a job description, objected Lucy. The journalist shrugged. On Blaranton, news hacks aren't allowed individual names, something to do with avoiding the cult of personality or something. So, the guy's name is the journalist.
Mm-hmm. Well, we do find out his real name, but it's much later in the story.
Yes.
In fact, it's just like a footnote.
Yes. In the engine room, the journalist walked over to and immediately armed the bomb.
Yes, this was the dumb part.
Yes. Lucy asked why, and he was told the Dormillion for press to arm is very similar to the Blaranton please press dog. It was simply mistranslation. So you guessed it, Lucy screamed again. But yeah, that was the dumbest excuse to push, like he wanted a dog.
You always push the big red button, right? Is that what they say?
Always, yes.
Here they are discussing Lucy as Lucy's name, and Lucy asks the journalist what the journalist's name is. He says the journalist, and from there on in the story, they call him the. Okay?
Yes.
So when Lucy asks why on earth would he push the button? He says, I was wondering what the dog had to do with it.
Right. This doesn't just happen here. It happens in a lot of sci-fi properties, and it bugs me every time. The timer on the bomb is counting down from 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
The journalist says, the clock is counting once every inium, and that gives us about 16 Edos before it gets to 0. And Lucy doesn't know what that means or how long that is. What happened to the translator? It has to have some translation into time because they end up figuring it out.
Right.
So anyway, they go to find the lifeboats.
Did you mention lifeboats before?
No. Well, the bomb's going to explode. It's counting down from 1,000. They only have 16 Edos before it gets to 0. So they decide they're going to get off the ship. In the embarkation lobby, they meet up with Dan, who is still fighting for an upgrade. The journalist looked over and started strangling the desk bot, making the lights go off and on again. All of a sudden, an ancient being crawls across the floor to the desk, presents her thingy, and asks for upgrades for everyone. The air and heat returned for the comfort of the newly arrived first-class passengers.
Right.
Chapter 14.
Chapter 14.
The ancient creature was Nettie.
Mm-hmm.
The Starship Titanic was powered by a captive black hole. The cost-cutting meant that the window containing the black hole was not up to spec. Nettie discovered the problem as she climbed the ladder looking for the phone to the captain's bridge. The force of the black hole had simply plucked her off the ladder and absorbed her through the window. Once in the black hole, she had begun to spin around for, as far as her body was concerned, hundreds of years, traveling millions of light years round and round and round in tiny circles. Fortunately, she still had her personal electronic thingy on her, and this had dutifully clocked up all the miles she traveled. Nettie had been thrown clear of the black hole when the journalist had short-circuited the desk bot while choking it. Nettie was miraculously still alive, and even more miraculously, still had the presence of mind to realize that she had accumulated millions of light years of space miles, enough to get them all free upgrades to first class. Oh. So, yes, so I didn't realize that your travel miles were based on a device you carried with you.
Yeah, that was interesting. But what was funny about that particular aspect was that I thought of the, bands you wear at Disney World,
Okay.
It kind of makes sense that they have an interactive connectivity, and they do get them when they come on the ship, so they are connected.
Yes.
So that's how they would record their travel miles. So I thought that was kind of fun. But that she lived for hundreds of years without food or air or water or whatever is kind of silly.
Yeah, I agree. So again, the journalist and Lucy went to find the lifeboats, and Dan took Nettie to find somewhere quiet. Lucy and the journalist discovered that the lifeboats were victims of cost-cutting, but the signs leading to them were not. Because who needs lifeboats if there's never ever going to be a passenger? Lucy decided she was going to hump an alien before she died.
Right.
Afterwards, they lay together waiting for an explosion that did not happen. So I don't know if that was the journalist that didn't get it.
No. You have to be fair, because here's what it says. And I love this line. It's the best line in the whole book. They lay there waiting for the forever-ending explosion that would terminate their brief affair. But unlike the two lovers, it didn't come. Lucy says, "What happened?" The journalist says, "I don't know."
Chapter 15. At the moment the bomb was supposed to explode, Nettie realized the bomb was going to explode in 5 minutes and told Dan he had to get to the engine room and talk to the bomb. Talking to the bomb makes it lose its place in the audible countdown, and the bomb had to start again from 1,000. Lucy and the journalist raced back to the engine room to try and stop the bomb. So here is a reworking of a Hitchhiker's joke. As they raced down the Grand Axial Canal, second class, they didn't realize that they had missed bumping into Dan on his way back to the beauty salon by exactly 1/864th of a second, which, by an incredible coincidence, was exactly where the bomb had got in its countdown when Lucy and the journalist arrived back in the engine room. So that was just completely put in there as a Hitchhiker's homage.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just put it in the universe. While Lucy is trying to figure out the puzzle of the bomb, the journalist cannot keep his hands off of her because once roused, Blerontinian males tend to be very single-minded. Lucy wants to go to the captain's bridge and leave the journalist behind to keep talking to the bomb. Chapter 16. The journalist will not let Lucy leave, and they continue in their amorous affections. Dan arrives and wants to punch the journalist for what he is doing to his girlfriend. He refrained due to the more urgent need of finding the captain, so he ran out of the engine room. Like, really? Like, I'd really hit you, but I got to find the captain because I want to get off the ship.
He's as nasty as a package of Band-Aids.
That's right. Lucy was having difficulty removing the journalist from her. Lucy had attended self-defense classes and had always slightly regretted the fact that she'd never had the chance to put her skills into practice. Consequently, it was with some satisfaction that she suddenly realized this was such an opportunity. She decided to use the standard response to the amorous alien fondling you from behind assault. She drove her right elbow hard into his stomach. Then she twizzled half around, caught his left wrist, and threw him over her shoulder onto the engine room floor. As she ran out the door after Dan, the journalist called after her that there was not a captain on this ship, but she did not hear him. Well, that is the halfway point of this book, and we are going to pause here.
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
And we're going to let you take in everything that we have said about this book before we come back with the conclusion.
That's right. We're at the classic cliffhanger moment in the book.
So check back in 2 weeks, because we will do a bonus episode, which will be the second half of the Starship Titanic.
And I hope to have my voice back by then.
Yeah, that would be better.
Mm-hmm. You got it. You got it. Well, Jeff, what will we do now?
So now that we've talked about what's happening in the next episode, I guess I have to say that this is the middle. Thank you for listening to this. A new episode is released on the first Thursday of every month. Visit our website at digitalwatchesareaprettyneatidea.buzzsprout.com. While there, you can find links to all of my Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy inspired t-shirt designs. You can contact us via email at digitalwatchespodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook at Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea. You can message us on Twitter, or should I say X, at Watches Idea, and our Instagram is Watches Idea Podcast.
This has been a Froods for Thought production, darling. This has been a Froods for Thought production, darling. This has been a Froods for Thought production, darling. This has been a Froods for Thought production, darling. This has been a Froods for Thought production, darling.